If you want to be the second type of investor, you need to develop three main skills. 1. Find an opportunity that everyone else missed. You see with your mind what others miss with their eyes. For example, a friend bought this rundown old house. It was spooky to look at. Everyone wondered why he bought it. What he saw that we did not was that the house came with 4 extra empty lots. He discovered that after going to the title company. After buying the house, he tore the house down and sold the 5 lots to a builder for 3 times what he paid for the entire package. He made $75,000 for 2 months of work. It's not a lot of money, but it sure beats minimum wage, and it's not technically difficult. 2. Raise money. The average person only goes to the bank. The second type of investor needs to know how to raise capital, and there are many ways that don't require a bank. To get started, I learned how to buy houses without a bank. It was the learned skill of raising money, more than the houses themselves, that was priceless. All too often I hear people say, the bank won't lend me money, or I don't have the money to buy it. If you want to be a type 2 investor, you need to learn how to do that which stops most people. In other words, a majority of people let their lack of money stop them from making a deal. If you can avoid that obstacle, you will be millions ahead of those who don't learn those skills. There have been many times I have bought a house, a stock, or an apartment building without a penny in the bank. I once bought an apartment house for $1.2 million. I did what is called tying it up with a written contract between seller and buyer. I then raised the $100,000 deposit, which bought me 90 days to raise the rest of the money. Why did I do it? Simply because I knew it was worth $2 million. I never raised the money. Instead, the person who put up the $100,000 gave me $50,000 for finding the deal, took over my position, and I walked away. Total working time, 3 days. Again, it's what you know more than what you buy. Investing is not buying. It's more a case of knowing. 3. Organize smart people. Refund, refusing to see how the game reflected her. Games are a powerful way to teach, as they reflect behavior and are instant feedback systems. Later, Robert got an update on the upset woman. She had calmed down and started seeing a slight relationship between the game and her life. A life in which she'd never paid attention to her and her ex-husband's finances and had been burned because of it. The purpose of the cash flow game is to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Some do this easily, others struggle. Those who have creative financial minds escape the rat race the fastest. Some playing the game have lots of money, but don't know what to do with it. That's true in life as well. Some playing the game complain that the right cards aren't coming their way and just sit there. Some get a great opportunity card, but don't have the money to act on it. And others have the money, get a great card, but don't see it for the opportunity it is. All of these behaviors happen in real life, too. Financial intelligence is simply having more options, figuring out ways to create opportunities, or altering situations to work in your favor. Luck is created, so go create yours. Money, which isn't real by the way, but just what we agree it is, isn't our greatest asset. Our mind is. Train it well. Millions can be made from nothing more than ideas and agreements. Putting money away each month is a sound idea, but it can blind you to what is really going on and cause you to miss opportunities for much more significant growth. In the early 1990s, the economy in Phoenix was terrible. Robert and his wife Kim capitalized on that, investing in real estate. He gave an example of buying a home worth $75,000 for $20,000, using $2,000 as a down payment that a friend had loaned him for $200. While the purchase was being processed, he ran an ad advertising a $75,000 house for only $60,000 and no money down. As soon as the house was legally his, he sold it in minutes. Everyone was happy. And the $40,000 was created from money in Robert's asset column fund. Don't be afraid of losing, because failure is part of the process of success. There are 2 kinds of investors, 1, those who buy a packaged investment from a retail outlet, such as a financial planner, and 2, those who create investments. These are also known as professional investors. If you want to be the second kind of investor, you must develop 3 main skills. First, find the opportunities that everyone else missed. Second, raise money. And third, organize smart people and hire those with more intelligence than you. There is always risk, so you must learn to manage it rather than avoid it. Left hemisphere moment. Small amounts of money can be turned into large amounts with astute, well-timed investments. Right hemisphere moment. Robert always encourages adult students to look at games as reflecting back to them what they know and what they need to learn. Most importantly, games reflect behavior. They are instant feedback systems. Instead of the teacher lecturing you, the game is giving you a personalized lecture, one that is custom-made just for you. Subconscious moment. We all have tremendous potential, and we all are blessed with gifts. Yet the one thing that holds all of us back is some degree of self-doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. What was Robert saying? Now it's time to reflect. Ask yourself, what is Robert saying in this quote, and why does he say that? In this section, you do not need to agree or disagree with Robert. The goal is to understand what Robert is saying. Remember, this curriculum is designed to be cooperative and supportive. 2 minds are better than 1. If you do not understand what Robert is saying, do not shy away from it. Ask for help in understanding. Take the time to discuss each quote until you understand it. Often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. As a teacher, I recognized that it was excessive fear and self-doubt that were the greatest detractors of personal. Ask yourself the questions below and discuss them with your study partner. Be honest with yourself and your partner. If you do not like some of the answers you are giving, ask yourself if you are willing to change and accept the challenge to change your thoughts and mindsets. 1. Robert says that it is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. What is an example in your life or someone else's where self-doubt got in the way of a great opportunity? 2. Some people have a lot of money, but do not get ahead financially. Why is that? 3. As you have developed your own financial intelligence, how has it helped you see more easily whether a deal is good? 4. Robert's philosophy is to plant seed inside his asset column, starting small and seeing what grows. How are you planting seeds in your asset column right now? If you aren't, what could you do to be able to start? 5. Robert lists 2 kinds of investors: those who buy packaged investments and those who create investments. Which kind are you? Is that the kind you want to be? 6. How have you seen fear of failure play out in your life? And how did it prevent you from taking advantage of opportunities? What can you do to conquer that fear in the future? Chapter 6. Lesson 6. Work to learn. Don't work for money. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. A few years ago, I granted an interview with a newspaper in Singapore. The young female reporter was on time, and the interview got underway immediately. We sat in the lobby of a luxurious hotel, sipping coffee and discussing the purpose of my visit to Singapore. I wished to share the platform with Zig Ziglar. He was speaking on motivation, and I was speaking on the secrets of the rich. Someday I would like to be a best-selling author like you, she said. I had seen some of the articles she had written. Wanted us to know a little about every aspect of his empire. When I quit my high-paying job with Standard Oil, my educated dad had a heart-to-heart talk with me. He was bewildered. He could not understand my decision to resign from a career that offered high pay, great benefits, lots of time off, and opportunity for promotion. When he asked me one evening, "Why did you quit?" I could not explain it to him, though I tried hard to. My logic did not fit his logic. The big problem was that my logic was my rich dad's logic. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. Educated dad thought I went to school to learn to be a ship's officer. Rich dad knew that I went to school to study international trade. So as a student, Rich dad knew that I went to school to study international trade. So as a student, I made cargo runs, navigating large freighters, oil tankers, and passenger ships to the Far East and the South Pacific. Rich dad emphasized that I should stay in the Pacific instead of taking ships to Europe, because he knew that the emerging nations were in Asia, not Europe. While most of my classmates, including Mike, were partying at their fraternity houses, I was studying trade, people, business styles and cultures in Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Korea, Tahiti, Samoa, and the Philippines. I was partying also, but it was not in any frat house. I grew up rapidly. Educated dad just could not understand why I decided to quit and join the Marine Corps. I told him I wanted to learn to fly, but really I wanted to learn to lead troops. Rich dad explained to me that the hardest part of running a company is managing people. He had spent 3 years in the Army. My educated dad was draft exempt. Rich dad valued learning to lead men into dangerous situations. Leadership is what you need to learn next, he said. If you're not a good leader, you'll get shot in the back, just like they do in business. Returning from Vietnam in 1973, I resigned my commission, even though I loved flying. I found a job with Xerox Corp. I joined it for one reason, and it was not for the benefits. I was a shy person, and the thought of selling was the most frightening subject in the world. Xerox has one of the best sales training programs in America. Rich dad was proud of me. My educated dad was ashamed. Being an intellectual, he thought that salespeople were below him. I worked with Xerox for 4 years until I overcame my fear of knocking on doors and being rejected. Once I could consistently be in the top 5 in sales, I again resigned and moved on, leaving behind another great career with an excellent company. In 1977, I formed my first company. Rich dad had groomed Mike and me to take over companies, so I now had to learn from them and put them together. My first product, the nylon marketing. His reply, "I don't have the time, and I don't want to waste my money." The world is filled with talented poor people. All too often, they're poor or struggle financially or earn less than they are capable of, not because of what they know, but because of what they do not know. They focus on perfecting their skills at building a better hamburger, rather than the skills of selling and delivering the hamburger. Maybe McDonald's does not make the best hamburger, but they are the best at selling and delivering a basic average burger. Poor dad wanted me to specialize. That was his view on how to be paid more. Even after being told by the governor of Hawaii that he could no longer work in state government, my educated dad continued to encourage me to get specialized. Educated dad then took up the cause of the teachers union, campaigning for further protection and benefits for these highly skilled and educated professionals. We argued often, but I know he never agreed that over-specialization is what caused the need for union protection. He never understood that the more specialized you become, the more you are trapped and dependent on that specialty. Rich dad advised that Mike and I groom ourselves. Many corporations do the same thing. They find a young, bright student just out of business school and begin grooming that person to someday take over the company. So these bright young employees do not specialize in one department. They are moved from department to department to learn all the aspects of business systems. The rich often groom their children or the children of others. By doing so, their children gain an overall knowledge of the operations of the business and how the various departments interrelate. For the World War II generation, it was considered bad to skip from company to company. Today, it is considered smart. Since people will skip from company to company rather than seek greater specialization in skills, why not seek to learn more than to earn? In the short term, it may earn you less, but it will pay dividends in the long run. The main management skills needed for success are 1. Management of cash flow, 2. Management of systems, 3. Management of communication skills such as writing, speaking, and negotiating are crucial to a life of success. These are skills I work on constantly, attending courses or buying educational resources to expand my knowledge. As I have mentioned, my educated dad worked harder and harder the more competent he became. He also became more trapped the more specialized he got. Although his salary went up, his choices diminished. Soon after he was locked out of government work, he found out how vulnerable he really was professionally. It is like professional athletes who suddenly are injured or are too old to play. Their once high-paying income would jump exponentially. When it comes to money, the only skill most people know is to work hard. If that reporter took some courses in ad copywriting as well as sales, then got a job at an advertising agency, she would learn how to get millions in free publicity, a skill she could put to use turning her next novel into a bestseller. When Robert came out with his first book, If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School, a publisher suggested he change the title to The Economics of Education. But Robert knew that title wouldn't sell. Even though he is pro-education, he chose a title that was controversial because he knew it would get him on more TV and radio shows. And it worked. When he graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in 1969, he was hired as a third mate on a Standard Oil tanker fleet. The pay was okay, but it came with 5 months of vacation a year. It could have been a good career, but after 6 months, Robert quit to join the Marine Corps and learn how to fly. Rather than specialize, as so many do, including Poor Dad, Robert sought out new skills. Rich Dad encouraged that, telling him to learn a little about a lot. That's why Robert and his friend Mike had worked so many jobs growing up, to gain a variety of experiences. Poor Dad didn't understand the decision to leave the Standard Oil job. He thought Robert had gone to school to become a ship's officer. But what Rich Dad knew was that Robert went to school to learn about international trade, and he joined the Marine Corps to learn how to lead troops. That leadership skill would serve him well in whatever business lay ahead. In 1973, Robert resigned his commission and took a job at Xerox in sales, even though he was a shy person. In fact, it was because he was a shy person that he took the job. Xerox had one of the best sales training programs in the country, and there Robert overcame his fear of knocking on doors and being rejected. When he became one of the consistently highest producing salespeople there, he left. Robert launched his first company in 1977, selling wallets manufactured in the Far East and shipped to a New York warehouse. It was time to test his wings. Today, he still does business and play to win. They go to their financial planners or accountants or stockbrokers and buy a balanced portfolio. Most have lots of cash in CDs, low-yield bonds, mutual funds that can be traded within a mutual fund family, and a few individual stocks. It is a safe and sensible portfolio, but it is not a winning portfolio. It is a portfolio of someone playing not to lose. Don't get me wrong, it's probably a better portfolio than more than 70% of the population has, and that's frightening. It's a great portfolio for someone who loves safety. But playing it safe and balanced on your investment portfolio is not the way successful investors play the game. If you have little money and you want to be rich, you must first be focused, not balanced. If you look at any successful person, at the start they were not balanced. Is not the way successful investors play the game. If you have little money and you want to be rich, you must first be focused, not balanced. If you look at any successful person, at the start they were not balanced. Balanced people go nowhere. They stay in one spot. To make progress, you must first go unbalanced. Just look at how you make progress walking. Thomas Edison was not balanced. He was focused. Bill Gates was not balanced. He was focused. Donald Trump is focused. George Soros is focused. George Patton did not take his tanks wide. He focused them and blew through the weak spots in the German line. The French went wide with the Maginot Line, and you know what happened to them. If you have any desire to be rich, you must focus. Do not do what poor and middle-class people do. Put their few eggs in many baskets. Put a lot of your eggs in a few baskets and focus. Follow one course until successful. If you hate losing, play it safe. If losing makes you weak, play it safe. Go with balanced investments. If you're over 25 years old and are terrified of taking risks, don't change. Play it safe, but start early. Start accumulating your nest egg early because it will take time. The real estate market in Phoenix turned, and a few years later, that little unit was renting for $1,000 a month, $2,500 in the peak winter months. The unit was worth $95,000. All Richard had to put down was $5,000, and he would have had a start at getting out of the rat race. Today, he still has done nothing. Richard's backing out did not surprise me. It's called buyer's remorse, and it affects all of us. The little chicken won, and a chance at freedom was lost. In another example, I hold a small portion of my assets in tax lien certificates instead of CDs. I earn 16% per year on my money, which certainly beats the interest rates banks offer on CDs. The certificates are secured by real estate and enforced by state law, which is also better than most banks. The formula they're bought on makes them safe, they just lack liquidity. So I look at them as 2 to 7 year CDs. Almost every time I tell someone that I hold my money this way, especially if they have money in CDs, they will tell me it's risky. They tell me why I should not do it. When I ask them where they get their information, they say from a friend or an investment magazine. They've never done it, and they're telling someone who's doing it why they shouldn't. The lowest yield I look for is 16%, but people who are filled with doubt are willing to accept a far lower return. Doubt is expensive. My point is that it's those doubts and cynicism that keep most people poor and playing it safe. The real world is simply waiting for you to get rich. Only a person's doubts keep them poor. As I said, getting out of the rat race is technically easy. It doesn't take much education, but those doubts are cripplers for most people. Cynics never win, said Rich Dad. Unchecked doubt and fear creates a cynic. Cynics criticize and winners analyze was another of his favorite sayings. Rich Dad explained that criticism blinded while analysis opened eyes. Analysis allowed winners to see that critics were blind and to see opportunities that everyone else missed. And finding what companies traded in the stock market, anything, just to make sure those guys don't start yelling at me. That pressure made me work harder, forced me to think, and all in all made me smarter and more active when it comes to money. If I had paid myself last, I would have felt no pressure, but I'd be broke. So it is the fear of the government or other people you owe money to that motivates you? That's right, said Rich Dad. You see, government bill collectors are big bullies. So are bill collectors in general. Most people give in to these bullies. They pay them and never pay themselves. You know the story of the 98-pound weakling who gets sand kicked in his face? I nodded. I see that ad for weightlifting and bodybuilding lessons in the comic books all the time. Well, most people let the bullies kick sand in their faces. I decided to use the fear of the bully to make me stronger. Others get weaker. Forcing myself to think about how to make extra money is like going to the gym and working out with weights. The more I work my mental money muscles out, the stronger I get. Now, I'm not afraid of those bullies. I liked what Rich Dad was saying. So if I pay myself first, I get financially stronger, mentally and fiscally. Rich Dad nodded. And if I pay myself last, or not at all, I get weaker. So people like bosses, managers, tax collectors, bill collectors, and landlords push me around all my life just because I don't have good money habits. Rich Dad nodded, just like the 98-pound weakling. Overcoming arrogance. What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money. Every time I have been arrogant, I have lost money. Because when I'm arrogant, I truly believe that what I don't know is not important, Rich Dad would often tell me. I have found that many people use arrogance to try to hide their own ignorance. It often happens when I am discussing financial statements with accountants or even other investors. They try to bluster their way through the discussion. It is clear to me that they don't know what they're talking about. They're not lying, but they are not telling the truth.
Walking down like a darted bull. I have the needle sticking out of my ass. I'm walking down the freaking hallway. I'm like, oh, thank you. That was my fucking life, you know?
I mean, listen, man, I got shot, unfortunately, 19 years ago. And I remember when I went to the hospital, they gave me a morphine drip for the first time ever had in my entire life. It was 2001.
Want to get shot again, probably, right?
And it was, yeah, I literally remember at that moment, I felt warm and I felt great. I had no pain at all whatsoever. And if anything, I was like, damn, man, I was eating a Jolly Rancher. The flavor was so enhanced. It was nothing like weed or anything I'd ever done.
Right.
But the crazy part was, you know, I was in high school in 88, 89, 90, so it's like, I wasn't fucking around with anything like that back then, but, you know, I always hear about Quaaludes and Scarface. You guys talked about it. That wasn't a
drug in the history of all drugs. So by the mid-70s and the 80s, right, when my time came around, right, it was like the most abused drug ever. By the time I really got into them in the 90s, they were illegal. You couldn't find them anywhere. I was going around the world to pharmacies like in Spain and Switzerland. We were cleaning out pharmacies, buying pharmacies, and getting these pills flown back in. They were just unbelievable. And they, you know, I single-handedly bid up the price of a Quaalude to $50 a pill. So before I got sober on April 17th, the price of a Quaalude was $50 in New York. The day after I got sober, they were $5. I had a standing order of $50. The market crashed, you know?
You know, like, going back, you know, you're talking about addictive and stuff and everything, like, you know, with the Xanax, if you take it after a certain amount of time, if you even take it for like months, at that point you can't stop. You have a seizure. You know, you can literally, but I mean, unless you obviously you get professional help, you can't just cold turkey cut it on your own.
So they say, yeah. I mean, that's probably good advice. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really sure if that's. You're not guaranteed to get. I'm an expert in this stuff. Okay, you're not guaranteed to get a seizure if you radically stop taking they're called anxiolytics, right? Xanax, Klonopin, you know, Valium, all of them. There's so many of them. There's all different brands, right? Ativan, you name it, right? There are all these brands called benzodiazepines, right? And those prevent anxiety, by working in the central nervous system, right? And if you stop taking them, yes, you run the risk. It's a small risk of getting a seizure, but what you do feel is fucking massive, and you'll feel like terrible anxiety and nervous and all these sort of sweats and these terrible things. So you don't want to do that. A seizure, maybe not, but you don't want to stop radically. But the good news is with that is they are a pretty easy taper. If relatively speaking, what you probably gonna have mostly is insomnia. If you let's say you're taking 2 or 3 milligrams of Xanax per day, right? So it'd be 10 milligrams of Valium, 1 milligram of Xanax is a blue. So you could be taking 2 and go to 2 to 1.5. You can taper in a month and with very little, but maybe some rebound insomnia. While on narcotics, it's a whole different ball of fucking wax. Narcotics are very difficult to get off of. They require, typically some sort of intervention or a Suboxone type of thing, and that's its own issue as well.
I mean, at the height of just. Because when you see Leo's character saying, I take this in the morning, I take this because it's awesome, I take this.
I slept in months and months. I was like in my office at the middle of the night with a shotgun. It was like aliens were coming through the fucking windows. Like I heard a noise out on my fucking property. I had this huge property. I took a shot at fucking, I was a flying saucer, was the milkman. I didn't get milk for like 6 months after that. And when I finally got sober, it was like they went through my bag when they launched. My parents came down. It was in Georgia when the whole thing went down. Miami, actually. And I flew to Georgia. And my parents, I had my bag of tricks, basically. And they lined up all the different drugs. It was 22 different substances I was on. It was fucking crazy. I mean, you name it, I was taking
On a
it.
daily basis, though?
On a daily basis.
How the fuck did you stand up and sell stocks?
I fucking did. I was sharp as a tack still. I was crazy. You know, I literally, I think on the hit parade was Ludes. So Quaaludes, obviously, two different brands of them, right? I was taking morphine long-acting, Percocet short-acting was a narcotic. I had Narco in there, well, just for good measure. You know, I had like some ecstasy and mix in the bag. Wasn't taking that every single day. I had obviously marijuana. Why not? You know, I had
What was the first thing you took when you woke up?
GHB.
Like when you woke up in the morning, what was the first?
2 hits of blow, one, then 4 Quaaludes.
Damn. Man.
I used to wake at the height of it. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. because I wanted to be able to go up and down. My wife would wait. I wanted my first high to be clean, no one fucking bothering me. So that was really fucking bad. That was like at the height of it, you know. And then I was taking Klonopins. I like the way it sounded. Like a club Klonopin. I take Ambien. I was taking Valium. I was taking a lot of Paxil, Prozac. I was taking
Prozac?
Why not? So this is SSRI. He was like, going to the early. I was like, yeah.
Oh, isn't Prozac antidepressant?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I discovered Ambien. I got zip tied by Air Marshal on the way to South Africa.
Me too. That's true on the plane I did because I went to the stewardess. I thought she liked me.
No, I had anxiety. So I started doing push-ups in first class. And then I couldn't deal with it. I watched every episode of Fresh Prince. And finally, I was like, hey, man, they're talking about there's 7 hours left. And I can't do this trip anymore. So there's nowhere to land. You know, you're going over to go South Africa. So finally, they had to zip tie me.
Yeah.
And I was taking oxygen. And the lady said, I can't take any more oxygen. They need to leave 15% of the oxygen tank for the rest of the passengers. And that's like you $50,000 for it. I don't give a
my podcast, we already announced it. So probably, I'm guessing it'll come out the end of this year. Really excited about that.
Nice, man, nice.
Wolf of Wall Street TV series is going to be a big hit.
Oh, I can't fucking. If you need, I wish I was fucking bigger to play fucking the Victor Wang guy, whatever the fuck his name was.
It's not working out right now.
At the height of your success, man, what are some of your favorite experiences that you can remember? And just the most favorite.
I mean, I did so much stuff. I mean, I think that, you know, the first thing I did when I remember that the really first big purchase I made is when I first made my first, I think it was $1 million. And I was 23 and I went out and bought this white Ferrari Testarossa.
Right.
And it just meant everything. It's like, you know, it just meant everything to me. That car when I was 20, a young kid from a poor family. That was like just something that stands out. It's just like, and then, I mean, I spent yachts and jets and trips all over. Just pure insanity. I mean, gambled like you couldn't. My whole life was one gigantic, experience of insanity, that just never stopped. And it just kept going on. It just seemed like everything I did just led to one thing. I think, some moments that stand out are the evening that I invented the straight line system, the sales system that I created, I still teach today. That was what paved the way for everything. When I started my firm and I tried to teach these other kids to call rich people, they couldn't do it. And then, I stumbled upon a way of training salesmen. That was really an amazing moment. That really, to me, that paved the way for everything. And then I think it was all the camaraderie, the parties, the Hamptons. Right. It was everything. It was one gigantic party that went on for a decade, Do you
have any, toys now? Do you care about yachts and cars now? Is it anything?
Car, I have a nice place, I like to fly private, I won't fly private if I'm gonna have to go. I mean, I'm not gonna fly private to Europe, but I could take a commercial jet first class.
Trust me, I know
crazy,
how much it costs.
It's ridiculous, right? It's interesting now. I don't even like to drive, really. I honestly would be sitting. My assistant will drive my car mostly because I'm just like to sit and text. I'm doing shit all day. You know what I'm saying? I'm busy.
Right.
I'm really not into that anymore as much. It's so funny because I loved watches. I had a zillion watches. And I respect, my mother was a professional always, so I never looked at it like that. But what happened was fucking nuts. And I hate more than anything, even forget the Me Too, was the fucking snowflakes with their safe spaces and their trigger. Shut the fuck up and get a fucking life. You know what I'm saying?
Because your age, you're just a little bit older than my brother. And like, I grew up listening to Andrew Dice Clay, and I fucking love this guy.
Right.
And he'd even make fun of Asian people, and I didn't give a fuck. It's fucking funny.
Humor.
Yeah, it's funny. And they're crucifying him. Like, hey man, he can't do this. He can't play in these clubs in Vegas anymore because of what he said about chinks and gays. And I'm like, listen, man, listen. And then, but the Asian people are like, nah, fuck that. We don't want to hear this anymore. I'm like,
I think Eddie Murphy had a really good take on it. He said he looked back at his old stuff, and he cringed a bit today, because listen, there's a time, and things that made sense 20 years ago, they don't make. But he wouldn't say I'd take it back, 'cause back then it made sense. You can't crucify someone for what they said 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and I think, yes, of course, listen, times change. What's considered acceptable changes, and you have to be somewhat sympathetic to that. But it's gotta go back somewhat towards center, because you can't be so fucking sensitive in this world. Okay, are you that weak-minded? Are you that much like you have no internal barometer of your own self-worth? Someone else's words can be that damaging to you? There's something wrong with that, I believe.
yeah, no, I think so too.
So,
if you let anybody, like, listen, man, you're let someone you don't even know. You've never met this person in your entire life. You don't know what their intentions are, and that one thing fucked up your day. It's pretty fucking crazy. Who you are as a person.
and the whole Donald Trump thing, just stop already. Just vote him out of office.
Yeah.
You don't like him, vote him out of office. I mean, like, listen, I voted for Trump. I don't love everything he does.
Right.
At all. Okay? Would I vote Democrat? Maybe, if it was a normal, I'm not going to vote for a fucking Elizabeth Warren or a fucking socialist.
Right.
But, if a normal one, I don't know what I would do. But the point is, it's like, when Obama was president, I fucking supported him.
Right.
He's my president. It's like, just stop it.
Did you have a party with Donald Trump? You met?
I went to I flew with him in his helicopter to Trump Castle in 1990, believe it or not. Yeah, back in the day. So I know him. And listen, I think that he's done amazing things economically for the country. I don't agree. In some ways, he's almost like the unfunny comic. He
Yeah.
says shit that everyone else says, and like he has a way of saying it, and people misinterpret it. The press is trying to misinterpret it. I think he could improve his communication, but I think so much of it is just absolute bullshit.